Hello. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming, especially everyone. No, it's really good. So this is really a first for us. Actually, PS Day as a thing is kind of a first, and we wanted to try it. And honestly, it's good to see the support and everyone's coming there, everyone's happy and trying to be there very early, and we're going to start really sharp right now. So, a few things. This is the organizers. There's also Martinas up there, which is stuck in reception because we need to have someone. But you're going to say hello, and he's going to come pop down later on. Yeah. Last minute edit. This is not me. It's him. So it's John, and I'm Gail. Hebrew. We're going to say. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach to any of us and ask, and we're going to sort it out. And we are the user groups in the UK. We try to organize things. We've got one in London running. There's Paul in Scotland who couldn't come down. John is organizing South Coast. And if you want to start a meetup, or if you want to attend a meetup, or if you want to suggest a talk, just get in touch, and then we're happy to help.
It's for me. So, I am one of the organisers as well of PS Day of PS Conf EU, which happens in Hanover. And if you can get over there for 4 days of PowerShell geeky fun with members of the PowerShell team, don't know how many, but last year there were 6 members of the PowerShell team there and a whole load of great guys giving presentations. I highly recommend that you speak to your boss and say, I need to go to there. If you're a speaker, there are some speakers in the room. Rick, I'm looking at you. Call for papers is open. Please get in there. We are doing real-time approval of submissions. So the earlier you get your submission in, the quicker we can approve it.
I forgot to mention the PowerShell User Group UK also has a Slack channel. And we've got PowerShell.org.uk. You should be able to find links and join if you're not already in there. So a big thank you to the sponsors, and we're going to spend a couple of minutes for G-Research first, which is a company that I've been working for a while actually with, and that was a few years ago. And Joe is coming to tell us more about it.
Yeah. Hello all, I'm Joe. I'll keep this super quick for you. I work at G-Research. There's a few of us going to be here today. By all means, come along, say hello. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. Who we are a leading financial research and technology company. Thank you. That's probably better. We've been around for a while now. We have a complex global infrastructure. We have a quite large IT division that's constantly getting bigger, constantly recruiting new people in. It ranges from service desk guys all the way up to big data experts, Windows, Linux, all that jazz. Us, the people who are here today, there's currently 3 of us here, but there's going to be more of us turning up as the day goes on. We have approximately 3,000 Windows machines, once again, constantly increasing. 500 Linux machines, that's also increasing. We have 50-50 physical virtual split, on-prem and all across the globe. Our actual user base is pretty small, about 450 to 500 people, but that is also obviously still massively increasing. The kind of things that we're trying to solve right now in the Windows group, which we'd be happy to kind of talk to you guys about, is no machine is older than 30 days. The software is installed and configurations are done, not done manually. And then the whole self-service machine software and all that stuff for the users, so there's kind of no interaction from IT operations. Some of the tech that we're using right now, as you can see, Chocolatey, who is Mr. Rob is here somewhere.
Back there.
There he is. Cool. So he did a talk with us the other day, which was really good. DSC, Packer, Ansible, Splunk, OpenTSDB. We're constantly trying to kind of add on more and more stuff that will make our lives easier. So by all means, if you come to us and talk about some new cool tech, then hopefully we can incorporate it. As for the boring stuff that you guys probably don't want to hear about is the opportunities going on right now. engineering role, 6+ years, really good knowledge of Windows and really good at automation, PowerShell, that stuff. The operations analyst, looking more into the tick over for the eng guys, making sure our state is healthy, doing deployments, using things like Splunk, OpenTSDB to track how we're doing and managing from a state point of view. And then there's also managers for both team. If you're fancy moving into a managerial role or you have good experience, by all means come and speak to us. Benefits, normal stuff there that you can see. We have kind of promote a big emphasis on the whole social aspects of our culture at work. And then finally, where we are is in near Tottenham Court Road, so West End, right next to Soho, and really good location. And that is me done.
So Noah, I'd like to meet you the second one, sir. Just got on, yeah. You did an amazing talk yesterday at WinOps. WinOps recorded the talk, so I really recommend watching his talks from yesterday.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I better grab the clicker. So I won't talk too much. Well, I'll try not to talk too much anyway, because I know I've got to be quick. So my name's Conor McRae. I'm the VP for Technical Operations Teams. We have a really large estate. I've been with Ticketmaster for more than 18 years. Yeah, basically, PowerShell's been really massive for us. I'll just tell you a little bit about Ticketmaster as well. I don't know if has anyone used Ticketmaster? Anyone used Ticketmaster? Come on, man, come on. So basically, you probably know Ticketmaster from our retail website. Like that's where most people know us. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I talked a lot about it yesterday. But basically, we provide a ticketing service to venues, clients, and artists. So you only see the tip of the iceberg as a consumer. We have a whole massive machine behind that for data analytics and also reporting, financial reporting, as well as a kind of insight. And also getting access into venues, so that can be done safely and securely and fast. When you go to a stadium next, just think about all of the things that might take to get someone into the venue, from buying the ticket and getting into the venue, getting into their seat, and making sure that no one else is already sat in their seat. It's actually quite a complex operation. So Ticketmaster is the leading ticketing company. We invest heavily in our technology. We sell a lot of tickets. So our primary ticketing platform, when we talk about primary, it's not something that's been resold or anything like that. These are tickets people have gone in, I've bought the ticket, I want that ticket. 80 million unique visitors a month, so that's pretty significant. And it's very choppy, very spiky. Those that were there yesterday, I didn't have a graph. I should have brought in some of our on-sale spike graphs, but they're literally like a wall and then they drop off again. So when we have our big events go on sale, it's pretty terrifying. We operate in 28 countries, and that's always expanding. We've got 100 offices globally. That's including our technical offices, as well as our kind of operations teams that are supporting the venues and the artists and the clients. And then 4 million followers globally on social media. And 2 million of those are actually part of the international group. So that's like kind of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and the Middle East. And then 145 million email subscribers. So this is obviously, that's a older bit of tech there. It's pretty massive. On the international side, it's closer to about 30 million, so slightly smaller there. We're part of Live Nation Entertainment, so that's a pretty large organisation. Live Nation Entertainment is really like an event and promotions organisation, and in that there's a whole subsidiary of other companies. So kind of lots of festivals across the world, like dance events and festivals. They own and manage a whole bunch of those things, and Ticketmaster is the provider for those platforms. But there is a wall between the organisations, because and that's very important to us as an organisation, because Ticketmaster is servicing anyone that needs to sell their tickets. So we don't care if you're a Live Nation venue. We want to be able to support you and give you the best experience as a venue, so that more fans can get access to those tickets, whether that's a sporting event, a music event, or anything else. So I did this yesterday, so apologise for those that saw it yesterday, but I wanted to really tap up and just talk a little bit about how impressive the change has been about Microsoft, and how we really appreciate it. As an organisation that has a heterogeneous environment, lots of Linux, lots of Windows estate, we think this is really massive. So it was always Windows versus Linux for us. It was we had separate camps in our organisation as well, and quite often they were just scoring points off each other. Pretty childish. I'm pretty sure everyone here would have seen that same thing in other organisations. Hands up if you also witnessed that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So, man, the formatting. Okay, well, you knew what it said, right? I think this is a Mac to Windows thing, but you know. I mean, when Microsoft started talking about Windows loves Linux, actually that was really impressive. I remember seeing the blog post about, it hasn't happened yet, but SSH coming to Windows. It's not really necessary anymore. But we were like, wow, that's really cool. Because that basically meant no more Cygwin on Windows, which was very, very cool. I know that all of the Windows admins at Ticketmaster hated me. Even though I cut my teeth on NT4, we would put Cygwin on Windows so that we could manage them more effectively and securely, and that was not very good. So basically, thank you PowerShell for that, because that's been the real enabler, and it's not really been about PowerShell, it's been about Microsoft's openness and the fact that they've started open sourcing technology and how they've changed as an organization. So that's been really huge. So what was world like before PowerShell? Wow. Well, I'd just cast your mind back to someone new starting in your organization before PowerShell came along. Think about some of the experiences that those people had. And think about what we used to use. Really, we didn't have any automation, so it was really about build docs. And this was probably a familiar experience for many people. You know, the build docs are out of date. Not a very pleasant experience. I missed a step. Oh no. There's no way to validate that the things that you wanted to do were actually done in the right order. Again, build docs is not a really effective way to build a technical organization. There's no guarantee that it was properly tested or validated. And the person that wrote it is no longer here. So that's not a good thing. And maybe they weren't very competent. So the poor person behind us had to put up with this. It's not really a good position to be in. Some of the stuff that we're using now at Ticketmaster, to give you an idea of the tech, is we're using Chef, we're using Packer, we're using Terraform, we're using PowerShell extensively, and obviously even within our Chef cookbooks, we're executing how to use PowerShell to do some of the stuff we're doing there. Chocolate's playing a big part in the way that we're managing packages as well. We're trying to migrate a lot of our products into AWS, but realistically, we think there's going to be some that are not going to be ready to move to AWS for a while, and they're going to be on-premise on our internal cloud for a while too. So we have some interesting challenges about how we can make that look simpler for the engineers and for some of our other operations teams. We're looking at a lot of different open source technology for monitoring as well. We do use Splunk. We're looking at Prometheus. So anyway, this gives you a little bit of an idea about some of the estate of stuff that we look at. But going back to what PowerShell now looks like, oh, wow. Someone reviewed it, it's in Git, it's repeatable, I can test it, feels good. So that's the difference that it really makes. And having infrastructure as code, having scripts peer-reviewed, this is a big difference. And it really puts Microsoft level pegging with Linux in the kind of in an automation state now as well. So this is a huge thing for us. So thank you very much. I've got the obligatory post. I'm not going to do too much of another sales pitch, but we are hiring. If you want to come and join the band, let me know. I'm definitely going to be hanging around, but I need to get back to the office after lunch. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Kick it off now, and I would like to introduce you Steve Murawski, Microsoft, formerly Chef, formerly Stack Exchange. But hey, Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Gail. All right, let's try transitioning these slides one more time. So welcome to the inaugural PS Day UK. This is, it's going to be a fun day, at least I hope so. I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to address you all this morning. And I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how I came to be a cloud developer advocate and why that kind of matters to the IT operations crowd in a more broad sense. For a long time, well, just a little bit about me. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. You can find a little bit more about my team at that AKA MS link. That'll be at the end of the deck as well. Before that, I worked at Chef. I was a principal engineer there. Worked on a lot of Windows and DSC related stuff, some Azure related stuff, but not a ton. And before that, I was at Stack Overflow. And if you're familiar with their infrastructure at all, it's pretty much all on-prem, pretty much all physical hardware. There's some virtualization, but most things of any consequence were running on physical hardware. Before that, I worked at a company called EdgeNet. They did data services, big multi-terabyte databases running on large SQL servers, terabyte of RAM, hundreds of cores, all that kind of fun stuff. So again, very, very high performance type infrastructure. And before that, a couple other random things, which you can find out if you're interested, or we can chat before. Tell you how I ran a flower shop and garden center for a long time. The traditional path to IT, right? So I really started out my career kind of in this cloud agnostic mode. I knew cloud existed. AWS and Azure were both kind of spinning up. There's a lot of buzz around it. Especially when I was at Stack Overflow, there was a lot of, well, you guys should move Stack Overflow to the cloud. And every now and again, we do a little analysis. And one of the first ones that we did, we found that, hey, guess what? The traffic bill for ingress and egress traffic was going to be more than what we were paying in data center hosting and purchases of new machines. So it didn't really make sense. And the other side of it was all of the applications were really written with bare metal in mind. All the performance tuning, all the monitoring, everything that we knew about these applications and how they ran and how we would make sure that things were running well was geared towards understanding that we know the exact physical hardware they're running on, we know what the resource utilization is, we know what the disk performance is, we know what the network latency is, and it was all tuned so that you got 0 millisecond wait times on queries from SQL Server. You had 10 to 15% CPU utilization across the web tier. On the database tier, you'd see maybe 15 to 30% CPU utilization. And when those metrics started to tick up, we knew we had a problem. And when we had a problem, and you lost, like, say, 8 out of 10 web servers, customers wouldn't notice because everything was performant enough that you could run everything on 2 out of 10 web servers, for example. So we really had, the environment was really geared towards operating on physical hardware and on known quantities of that physical hardware. So while we would look at cloud, it was never a real serious thing. And my previous jobs, again, had really geared me towards working on physical hardware, virtualization where we knew the underlying hardware. And to me, cloud was always, well, you know what? I don't know what's going to be running underneath. I can't really guarantee patterns of behavior and performance. Who knows when somebody's going to have another workload that's hogging resources, all that kind of stuff. And there really wasn't the variety of machine SKUs. And that story's changed some. Then, as I started to spend some time at Chef, I started using cloud a little more frequently, because now I didn't have infrastructure of my own to go spin up and play with. I didn't have physical hardware sitting around in a data center somewhere. So I would use it for my dev test workloads. I would use it for classroom environments and for spinning up test environments and things, and if I wanted to spin up an environment to try things out. And I started working with customers who were using cloud for things, and spending a lot of time in IaaS because I worked in config management, right? Well, none of that really sold me on benefit of cloud. And earlier this year, I was at Build, the Build conference. And one thing that really just kind of hammered home to me at Build was something that had been starting to creep into my consciousness. And that's, you know what? Cloud is not just about IaaS. It's not just about VMs as a service. There are all sorts of services available, and they're starting to become really useful, and they are providing the services that we provide in our data centers, but they're putting a dollar cost and an SLA on these things that I might have to compete against now, right? So Now there's services for database services. There's all of the cognitive services. There's caching layers. All of this intermediary stuff that I was spending time building out and I'm spending time maintaining. Guess what? Microsoft and Google and AWS are spending hundreds and thousands and millions of engineering hours doing the same thing. Am I going to compete with that necessarily? Probably not. And they're publishing this stuff, right? The prices, the SLAs, documentation on how to use this. Now, when our IT leadership is looking back at the services that their IT is performing, they have price sheets and documentation and things to go compare this stuff to. And that's putting pressure on traditional IT organizations. Number one, if we're offering, say, database services, how do we compare to what's being offered in the cloud? How quickly can we provision new stuff versus them just going and handing over a credit card and getting new things, right? That's not to say that in any way, shape, or form that traditional on-prem IT ops is obsolete. What I'm saying is we need to change how we look at things and look at things from this cloud model and start competing in that regard. Finding the things that differentiate us from those cloud services so that we can offer the best value and determine maybe we don't need to compete. Maybe we do consume some cloud services because they're going to free us up to do cooler stuff in other places. Maybe my best value isn't running a bunch of VMs. Maybe it's not running the Kubernetes infrastructure, right? Maybe I can outsource that to Azure Container Service or something like that because guess what? They're going to do it probably a lot better than I can because they've got dedicated teams focused on making that experience great for them internally as well as externally. So to me, kind of this coming reality that we have, we should not be fighting the cloud model. We should be embracing it. We should be looking at how we can convert the things that we do to offering those as services, to creating those SLAs. And here's an important part about SLAs. This is something that I found very interesting from the Google SRE book, was you also need to make sure that you take the downtime. Even, so if we say we're going to be up, and we're going to have like 8 hours of downtime for the year, you need to take those 8 hours because all your dependencies need to be able to deal with that, right? And so even though we might want to struggle against this a little bit, we need to find those areas where we need to add value. We need to add that additional transparency. That's one of the great things that I'm seeing in the cloud transition is we know what the cloud service is going to cost us. There's costing calculators and all sorts of stuff out there. We usually have a very limited understanding of what our internal IT services really cost us. So, while I don't think traditional IT is dead, I think it does need to evolve. And I think we're well positioned, especially given our automation focus, to meet that evolution. And one thing I want to kind of close with is some of what we're seeing in the changing face of engagement at Microsoft. And Connor mentioned some of this, but some things to keep in mind when we look at how Microsoft engages across the community. Consumption rules all. Windows as a service, Azure, it's all about usage, right? The things that help you are the things that you're going to consume. That's where effort is going to be put. And you're also seeing a lot of effort to engage Microsoft or non-Microsoft audiences across. Microsoft loves Linux. You may have seen a bunch of hires on my team lately from non-traditional Microsoft backgrounds, like Jesse Frizzell, Bridget Crumout, Ashley McNamara. all these people from various parts of different communities across the tech space that are not traditionally Microsoft audiences, Microsoft fans. And that's because there's a large untapped market that doesn't see Azure or Microsoft solutions really as a place to go. And Microsoft wants to be present in those communities. Not necessarily for immediate sales, but we want to be part of those communities. The Chef community, the PowerShell community, the .NET community. Some of these communities have been very active in the Microsoft space. They're not being forgotten. It may feel like that a little bit when you see some of these hires and some of the comments. Microsoft loves Linux, blah blah blah. That's just because we have not seen this type of engagement from Microsoft in the past, and so it just feels a little different. There's still a heavy engagement with the .NET audience. There's still a heavy engagement with the enterprise crowd. There's still a heavy engagement with the PowerShell and the Windows Server audience. So, and you're seeing even more stuff happening like around PowerShell with open sourcing and cross-platform nature of it. So, as we start to see engagement at Microsoft changing, just kind of keep in mind what's driving almost all of that. It's all about consumption, right? When Microsoft was running everything as a service, the only way Microsoft makes money is if you use it. And so that drives where we engage, how we engage, who we engage with, and that engagement is becoming much, much broader. I think you'll also see much more community focus being added on to our customer focus. With that, I want to thank you guys all for being here today, and I want to wish you a good day. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I think we're going to be breaking up the rooms now for our next tracks.
Thank you.
Yes. And if you need some links, a little more from me and my team.
Thank you, Steve.